All right, Saturday practice again in Northampton, Massachusetts, spare time bowling. Today we're going to do a lesson on projection and basically what that kind of looks like, how to handle it. Going to get into the in and out challenge and yeah, let's see how it goes. So for today, we're going to be using Zardoz, good old UFO Alert, hybrid cover with the asymmetrical core. I think it'd be better than kind of using my favorite lately, Duca. So just kind of a bit smoother roll, and we can see how that's going. So basically what we're going to do is on the approach here, looking at the dots, I'm going to be starting probably around about, left side of my left foot on 27 or so, 28. And notice that I'm going to have them straight forward, right? So that's going to be really the point to be paying attention to. Also, for hand placement, normally when I bowl kind of that inside line, I have my hand turned out like that. But today I'm going to kind of straighten out a little bit more for that outside line, try to not overhook it, get too much revs. Look at the red blinky dot there. That's that cosmic bowling. But yeah, so we're just going to see how that goes and they compare to each other. Let's see how it is. All right, let's get this started, everybody. Thank you again for checking out another of my explanation videos. Again, it's really me breaking down my own technique. I kind of wanted to make a point of this. I'm not a coach. I'm barely 1 year back to bowling after taking some time off. So it's really just my own personal reflections and growths. I think there may even be some things I talk about that if you watch my previous videos, I kind of like contradict them. So don't sweat it too much. Don't worry about like if this is too strict. Just my own thoughts on my own stuff. So yeah, so really where I want to start off is in the first shot. I think one of the best things that ended up happening with this video series is that they're actually in order. So I didn't really have to cut out too many in between shots where I was just off, and so I think that's like a lot of values. Like I said, since I'm still kind of improving, I'm not super consistent. I think some guys who would make videos like this, like the PBA people, they would be able to throw 100 shots in a row and maybe 5 or 6 would be off. So I'm happy that making this video, I did just go straight. And what you'll notice is that I do end up leaving a lot of 10 pins, like they hit the pocket, but there are 10 pins. I almost wanted to name this like the 10 pin video, but yeah, but anyways, just for some clarification. So first thing first, I want to point out, since this is sort of like that outline of like kind of being square with the lane, is first of all, my ball position with my arm is very straight out. I kind of even pulled it a little bit further forward than I wouldn't. Basically, my hand pointing more at the pins. Sometimes I let it come in front of me a little bit more when I'm turned out. And the other thing is making sure to keep an eye on how square my shoulders get. I'm pretty rigid. Watching all these videos of myself bowling, I sometimes laugh and think I move like Frankenstein, as opposed to some other bowlers who are extremely smooth. But so I'm gonna be a bit more rigid, which is fine. This is sort of my style. I think I'm just like a bigger proportion dude, a bit clunkier while I bowl. So anyway, so here's the first shot. Like I said in the introduction, going off of about 27 there with my feet. So just like I said, going straight, little drop down, very rigid, very smooth. Let me just take this moment. See, my swing is basically totally standard. A little bit of the turn back of shoulders. I mean, of course, you have a human body. It's not gonna just be like like a machine where the arm swings back where it wants, and just everything straightforward. Flip the wrist right there. We watch it in. I think this shot actually went a little high, right? So that's kind of like an interesting thing about making note about projection, is even though the ball didn't project, right, it follows a pretty straight line, going from about 10 to 8, right? It just sort of goes right down there, but there's still plenty of room for it to come across. The lanes were dry because it was a weekend pattern, so kind of like a short, dry pattern. And so it came across the top. So after this one, I made a couple of board adjustments to the right. and I moved from 27 to about 29:30. And there is also something else I noticed that was interesting is as I was reviewing these videos is like there's a specificness that you can pull off when you are kind of like this out square way of bowling. So I know basically exactly where my foot placement is. I know exactly where I'm throwing the board. Again, it goes a little bit over 12 to 9. That one catches the pocket. Almost had a messenger, which is pretty fun to see it happen on tape. But more than anything, again, it's that square up, square shoulders. Kind of see even my arm follow through is totally straight up, pointing to the sky, and so this actually felt good. It feels like a good ball. But I think what's really interesting in this series of videos and why I wanted to do this video in particular, and since I was using Zardoz, not like the super hardcore, asymmetrical core, is that like the ball sort of goes right, and this is the point of trying to do projection, is when you're really square and you're squared up, and again, this line I moved a little bit further out to 30 and a half. Again, it's everything's square, and the ball kind of, it's getting a bit of projection here. I have to throw it out again. My follow through is straight over my head again, but there's like a flatness to it, right? So, which is the point. I mean, this is a good technique to have if in certain conditions, right? So right now, like it goes in flat. I mean, that, the adjustment should have been right, but it's not going to come around. And this is the point of projection, is throwing the ball in a way that it's going to come back around, so that you get more of an arc, even though you haven't necessarily changed anything. You don't change your revs, no speed, nothing changes, but trying to project. So let's look at two of the last ones. I think I want to show these next two. Yeah, so these were the last two shots. I actually moved back into 27 again because it kind of went in flat on that last shot on 30 and a half. So here I moved back to 27 because the outline, you kind of can't necessarily keep working left because of the loss of projection, because you're not going to get around the ball. And so instead of trying to get it out to that get it out on that 8 board, instead I played a little bit tighter, and there we go, and it ended up being like a more of a pocket shot, which is nice. That's the point of it. And what's interesting about this this outline is that it has to stay tight, right? And that's something I wanted to be able to show, and I'm glad it shows in these videos, is that when you're working that outline, if you're gonna move left in an adjustment, you have to also move your breakpoint left and your ball left. It's just not conducive to being able to work sort of like those less than 10 boards if you're throwing it from like 27 or so. It's just not, it just doesn't work very well. So it forces you to be tight, and that also means that you have to be more precise. And that's why I've changed my game away from this, away from having to do an outline, because the preciseness really was limiting me from doing well. I did not feel like I could get my game together. There you go, another 10 pin, but a good pocket shot. I think if I were to adjust this a little bit, I would probably slow my swing down just a tad, probably just a tad. But so anyway, so I really just wanted to show this limitation of throwing this outline, that to get it to come back inside the pocket right here, you have to move everything more into the middle, and that's limiting. It's just really limiting. So we're just gonna take a sec, and I'm gonna just explain the difference in technique for doing a feet in turn, and just how that's gonna look different from what I was showing on this line. All right, so this is what we're gonna do now for the in line and doing projection, right? So first thing we do for projection is we're gonna turn our feet out. I'm gonna do a couple of shots on 27, but I'm probably honestly gonna move more out here to like, 26 or so. And so first thing you notice is I'm gonna have my feet turned out, so it's gonna let me, by nature, have more open shoulders. So as opposed to manipulating my shoulders open, I'm gonna start with my shoulders open so I can have a smooth line the whole time. And just like with the outline, I'm gonna turn my hand further. So I'm gonna give way more hook on that ball and get around it. So let's first do a couple of similar ones to the last shot down that 27, starting on the 27 board, and then we'll do some further working inside. Okay, cool. So that's how things are going to change, and let's get things started on the first shot. So leaving off from this last shot, which ended up going. That's actually the first shot. So let me go back to this last shot that I was showing with the inside line, where it was a good shot in the pocket, left a 10, starting on 27, throwing it over about 12 or so to about 9, and a good shot in the pocket, just a tight line like I was saying. So this is basically at the same exact footing, right? So on that 27 spot, and instead of throwing it tightly, I'm going to throw it out. So first thing to notice is my feet turned out, like I was saying. So my body is more pointing at like an inside target around here. So when I'm throwing that outside line, I tend to keep my eyes more at the arrows, somewhere around there. But for this inside line and being turned out, I tend to keep my eyes a little bit further down the lane, exactly where my break point is going to be. It just and as opposed to that outline, the inline is about generalities. An outline is very specific. I'm on the 27 board. I'm looking at the third arrow. I'm throwing at this breakpoint. There's like an over compulsiveness to it. But working the inline, as you can see, like my feet are kind of on 27, but they're spanning multiple boards. So it's kind of an area. I'm going to throw it in the area of my breakpoint. I'm not going to be throwing it at arrows. So it sort of loosens up, and you get a lot more room to play with. So we'll see on this first shot here. Again, just to note, my shoulders start more open, and my forearm is in a way pointing at the pin still, but since I'm not squared up to the pins, it's kind of coming across my body a little bit, and also like I explained with the wrist, the wrist turn is closer. It's kind of more tighter into my body a little bit to get around the ball a little bit more. So this one goes out. Already you can see it starts further out, ironically, kind of crossing over the 9, hits out to about the 5 board, comes around, and gets into the pocket. Now, that line wasn't necessarily available before because it was getting too much traction to begin with, and it just wasn't capable of coming around like that because of the axis of the ball and the shoulder turn and the being open, and just the nature of this throw is that kind of like my shoulder is starting behind me, so it allows it to sort of get out over an area of the lane and then come back over the front part of the lane. I know that kind of doesn't necessarily make sense, but it makes the ball arc more, right? It gives it an opportunity to move more because there's more to play with, even though my foot position may be on like the same spot. So that's really something to point out for. Let's do another shot on 27. I think this was the next one. And I think this one may not have gone exactly as planned, but let's take a look at it together. All right, so yeah, as you can see, feet again on 27, turned out, ball coming across my body a little bit more, shoulders open. Gonna head out there, right over that directly over the 10, head over 5, right in the pocket again, right? So again, just more room to be playing with, basically like a similar shot to the last one. So I'm going to move a little bit more left because, as you can see in those previous shots, it was kind of heading over that 10 board a little bit, and an optimal line into the pocket for me is not to be coming in from about the 5 board. For me, that line kind of just has too much angle, and I leave too many 7s and 10s. I don't. It comes in too much behind the head pin, probably because I can't come around the ball enough. That's my, I'm not a cranker. I'm a mild tweener. So yeah, that's really why I kind of want to move in that line a little bit, but not quite so much as when I was doing the out. Let me go back for 1 second. So as you can see, kind of on 30 here, like I moved basically, 3-4 boards out. Even though my feet are turned, it's kind of like, it's obviously much more to the left. And I'm going to throw this one out a little bit more. And instead of hitting around those teens or 10s area, around 10 or 11, it's kind of crossing over 14 there, right? So obviously the ball is going to start over more. Break is closer to like 7, right? That's sort of what I'm looking for, a 12 to 7. And then it comes around and it hits the pocket more, more flush. It has a better entry angle. It's not, I think I was just reading that 3 to 6 degrees is the optimal angle for a strike. So it's kind of coming in a little bit cleaner, not quite so angular, even though it is kind of coming in a little bit behind the head. And you can see the ball bouncing to the right a little bit closer to the 10 pin as opposed to, kind of going cleanly down the middle. But it follows through and you can see all the pins fall to the left. That's sort of something to keep your eyes on as your ball goes through the pins. But yeah, so this shot, again, it's a little bit further out, but the line is tighter. And so with that line being tighter, it's just going to more cleanly go into the pocket, which is what we're looking for. It's very tempting on this in angle to be throwing the ball in that like banana hook that people derogatorily call it or whatever. Like, we don't want a banana hook. We want a clean angle and to be getting more energy while going into the pocket. And that's sort of what the in does, as opposed to working the outside, as opposed to entering the lane outside of the oil and then only entering the oil as coming across, which just burns up energy. Instead, this line lets you stay in the oil longer and therefore store energy up longer. And because of the asymmetrical core for Zardoz, it's going to be a clean entry point. But if I was using something more symmetrical, like my Phase 3 or or the Hammer Raw Solid, it would kind of snap more at the end, because that kind of holds its energy even longer and even more into the end of the line. So just that's the point of this, is it's playing in the oil more. This is the modern game. This is the conversation that I have all the time, and I always have to decode with other bowlers, especially the older ones, is learning where oil is and how to play oil, and that box of oil concept, which is so important. All right, so since that one was a little low in the pocket and we went a little flush, I moved over 1 board. So and again, these were really just pretty much in succession. So I'm glad that I can even show the little adjustments that I made. And that, even though I say 29, as you can see, it's kind of like the back of my shoe is kind of on 30, and the front of my shoe would probably be on like 28. If we look on the last one that was 30, see, it's kind of in the general area of 30 versus the general area of 29. So let's see this ball go. I think it's going to basically follow the same line that we've been doing for the in. Again, kind of crossing over 11 there, maybe a little bit further out than I would want, over that 5 board, but caught the pocket a little bit better. So it's not necessarily as tight and not exactly how I wanted to, but it's a little bit cleaner into the pocket. Still has that same right reaction. So not exactly the correction I wanted to make. But let me show again for 28, right? So now I'm moving one more board over to get out there. And you know, in hindsight, and this is why you review videos of yourself, it's like, okay, did I need to make that change for one more board to the right? Or should I just throw in a better ball? And I think, again, going with the concept of these, you know, going with the concept of the generality of the inline and being able to be looser with it, I think the point is finding an angle where you can have much more room for error and play with more boards and not have to be precise like you would in that outline where it's, you know, 26 board, third arrow, 8 board, blah blah blah. Like it just doesn't. It makes it easier to bowl like this, right? So again, this one crosses over right around that 11 board, which is closer to what I'm looking for. It also goes out a bit too much, but cleanly into the pocket, I would say. So that one kind of went cleanly in. Still left at 10. You can see it bounced a bit more to the right, but of course it's because it started breaking around 4. So I was probably projecting it a bit too much here. But, you know, again, the point is that, like, this ball can come around now, right? It's coming around a lot better. It's going through the oil a lot better. It's projecting out. My swing, even, you can see, is going out a bit more, not quite so up my body a little bit. And yeah, it's just a cleaner, easier line. And we're gonna do one more adjustment out to 27. And this throw is kind of the other end of what I was hoping to show. So again, this is still that inline, so I'm still having everything turned out, but this ball went more tightly down the lane, and I possibly even pulled it a little bit, but you can see as it goes over 15 and then sort of breaks at about 10, like it's able to hold on to that line a lot better. So it gives room to make mistakes. Like I made a mistake. I probably pulled this ball just a little bit. You can see my arm kind of coming across my head there, right, when it's finishing. So I probably just came a little bit too left. More than likely my steps were a little bit off, right? So I'm trying to correct. But it's still, there's room to make that mistake. As opposed to that outline, if you pull it a bit too much, then it'll hook into the head pin or it'll hook over to the left. But because at that angle it's staying in the oil longer and breaking when it needs to, as opposed to breaking on the outside, it's capable of having a tighter line or a looser line. Like there's just more angle, more room for mistake. So that was fun. After all of these inlines, I wanted to go back to trying this outside line again, and just sort of tightening it up, and showing that tight shot again, like I just showed with that last inline, but instead doing it with the outline technique, the tighter technique, but doing it instead with down that, basically that same shot that I just threw. So starting on 27, much more precise. I'm gonna go right over that 15 line to that 10, and that creamed the pocket, right? So that really was a very, very, very nice line for that. Right over the, basically over the 14 board, breaking right at 10. So it's a tighter line, but see, it doesn't have that projection, so it doesn't have that high arc. It has sort of like a solid movement and then breaks at the end, So this is a very useful technique to have in your pocket if you're having a lot of over-under, if you're finding yourself where you're going too high into the pocket, too low in the pocket from one shot to the next, even though you're not necessarily changing things and things feel like a lot harder to throw when you're getting too much angle on your ball. So instead, you can kind of pull out this shot that isn't going to have so much movement down the lane. It's going to be tighter down the lane and more controllable into the pocket, and so it's just a more controlled throw. And again, it does require a bit more precision, but it's something. It's just another tool in the tool belt to be able to break out. Now, I will say this: the one problem with throwing a tight throw, and I'm sure we have all had this happen to us before, is you throw a very, very nice shot, exactly where you want it to go, exactly the speed you think you got it. It's going great. All right, over that 15, over that 10, and just a little, just a nice fu for your league line. And this is the danger of a tight line. It happens to the best of us. Ironically, a 7-10 is almost an acknowledgement that you had a really nice shot. You just hit the pocket a little bit too, just a little off again, like a ball going off to the right again. Sometimes I think a 7-10 is just like an accidental 10 pin, or an accidental 7 pin if you're a left-hander. But yeah, so that's really the difference. Again, just to sort of highlight the differences. Straight angles, straight shoulders, kind of like having that very forward arm placement, just everything very locked in, very tight. You hit the line, and everything is just kind of straightforward together, kicking out the leg to avoid it. Again, just very straight, tight, or whatever. And then for that inline, we just want to go a bit more open shoulders, a bit closer to the body with the arm, looser, and just finishing at the line with the shoulders open up some. But again, it's kind of like a square movement as well. I know some bowlers are very good at controlling the movement of their shoulders, and they can kind of whip themselves around and get more revs on their ball, which is totally useful technique, as long as when you hit there, your hand is at the right place. That's kind of like all that matters. But for me, I just like to keep it square, and just with this technique, I'm sort of squared openly. I'm an open square, if that makes sense. So cool. All right. Yeah, that's it for this one. I hope you get some value out of this. Let me know in the comments what you think. Do you use an in technique? Do you use an out technique? I've posted on my Instagram that I'll sometimes do an exercise I call the in and out challenge. And the in and out challenge is basically where you throw a half a game in, a half a game out. I use different balls between these techniques. I normally wouldn't throw the out with Zardoz. I throw it more with something like a Hustle or a Black Hammer Raw. Those balls are sort of meant to go on the front part of the lane a little bit straighter, and then pop open at the end because of the symmetrical core and stuff like that. Try it yourself. It's good to be able to switch when needed, be able to pull things out. You never know in a tournament what the lane's going to be asking of you. So let me know what you think. Thanks a lot, everyone. Have a good one.